Woo, okay, that was fun. Now, back at it. Ooh, what do we have here? Here's a band I wasn't expecting to still be around. Zebrahead? Really? They're still a thing? God, when was the last time I checked in on them? Like 2001, maybe? Zebrahead are one of those bands I like to refer to as a Tony Hawk band. And yeah, I remember that one Zebrahead song from like Tony Hawk 3, was it? Trippin'-a-ka-cha, 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 got no flow! Yeah, I remember that. But like a lot of other Tony Hawk bands, like, say, Rocket from the Crypt or Guttermouth, I'm destroying the world, I don't really give shit. You know, a lot of bands like that, these guys, I never really kept great tabs on them or anything. They weren't terrible, but they weren't a band I would have thought would have 20 plus years worth of material in them. But there's a new record out, and after having a few spins with it, I think I'm still kinda at a loss for words. It's not bad. It's not bad at all, really. It's still a decent, if not somewhat safe feeling and mild mix of snotty punk rock energy and doofy rebellious teenage angst. Given these guys have to at least be in their 40s by now, it's, you know, whatever. It's okay for what it is. All in all, it's still pretty fun. It's not offensive or anything. It has a right to exist. Hell, this stuff still sounds like it'd go great in the background of the old Tony Hawk games. But, oh, that's like a big part of my problem here, isn't it? They don't make the Tony Hawk games anymore. And it's not the early 2000s anymore, yet these guys, yeah, they sound ripped straight out of 2003. Their overall sound is just, like, super duper dated. They aren't a band that's done a lot of growth over the last couple of decades, but at the same time, I don't feel comfortable hanging them with that, you know, because even if they haven't grown much, I'd still say Zebrahead are a band that does a lot more than your average Vans sporting, cargo short wearing bunch of skater boys and Adio t-shirts, you know. For one, they're crazy eclectic. They bring that trademark 2000s punk sound on, right and ready, sure, but these guys are also cut from the same cloth as, say, Sum 41, in that they implement a lot of other genres into their brand of pop punk too. Their tendency to lean big into hip-hop and rapcore moments has been around practically since the beginning, and that's still an ever-present factor on this album as well. And while they do have a few corny as hell rhymes on this thing, the line "primal, hard rhymes while yours are vaginal" springs to mind. Like, that's not even how you say vaginal, dude. Come on! They aren't necessarily ever so bad that they take you out of the experience, but in addition to that, they also aren't afraid to go full Less Than Jake on songs like You Don't Know Anything About Me with its horns and its big ska influences. They aren't afraid to just turn the tempo up by 500% and go full metal on songs like Ich Ni San Shi, and they'll even bust out some good old-fashioned stoner-ass reggae on stuff like Up in Smoke, complete with a Passage to Bangkok style bong hit. It's not like they're totally lacking in substance either. A big theme of this album is the damaging long-term effects the advent of social media has had on society, and on songs like You Don't Know Anything About Me and All My Friends Are Nobodies, you can't help but nod your head a little bit and go, yeah, I feel you, dude. Shit's crazy, isn't it? Hell, even a song like Party on the Dance Floor can have a pertinent topical political message, i.e. the onslaught of American xenophobia and Trump's stupid shitty wall for assholes. Yeah, they do a good job when they do actually have something to talk about other than, you know, weed and vaginas. So, you know, there is a lot to like about this album. To a certain degree, I respect the hell out of it, but even back in my Tony Hawk days, Zebrahead was never a band I went too far out of my way to seek out, and while they are certainly eclectic and interesting for their genre, the fact that they haven't really changed much in all this time. It just isn't a turn on for me personally. It's good for what it is, absolutely. If it sounds up your alley, for sure, give it a shot. Brain Invaders gets 3.5 360 shove-its out of 5. Okay, here we go, Queensryche. I figured I'd probably end up talking about these guys at some point. They're definitely a notable band in the American prog metal scene. They're one of those bands where even if you haven't heard their music, you've likely at least heard of them. If only because you have, like, a friend or an uncle or something who saw them in '92 and they fucking ruled, dude! Woo! They've left a hell of a legacy. And well, I mean, I know about Queensryche. Operation Mindcrime is really good, and who can forget Empire and its horribly cropped out cover image. Guys, you're supposed to remove all that artifacting, for God's sake. But outside of those albums and the crazy drama that led to their falling out with original lead singer Jeff Tate around 2012, that led to 2 separate bands calling themselves Queensryche at the same time and releasing albums in the same bloody year, no less. Can you tell which album came from Tate's incarnation? Outside of all that, again, this is a band I haven't kept great tabs on. They've never exactly been critical darlings, and while I've never outright despised anything I've heard from them, they're a very, take it or leave it kind of band to me. You know, I won't complain if you want to throw Silent Lucidity on a long car trip, but I won't go out of my way to request it either. They're fine, you know, there's nothing wrong with them, but I don't have a very strong opinion or history with them going into this album, so wasn't quite sure what I'd be dealing with here, but thankfully, after a listen or two with this, I was pleasantly surprised to find that the new Queensryche album, I mean, yeah, it's fine. It's fine. They're still fine. This is their 3rd full-length album since Tate's departure, and you can tell the guys are in a much more comfortable groove with their new lead singer, Todd LaTorre. He's a very talented vocalist, and he even plays drums on the record as well, and he does a very proficient job at handling both tasks here. He does seem like a good replacement for Mr. I swear I'm not bitter about getting kicked out, Honest, and he has a lot of range to play with vocally, like, a lot. He really hits those high notes in a lot of places, doesn't he? Like, it's that kind of cheesy, late 80s metal kind of vocal delivery, and honestly, that kind of delivery does make the album feel a touch on the dated side, if I'm being honest. In fact, I could say that about a lot of other factors on this album too. That's the one problem I can definitely say Queensryche have been saddled with over the years. They are just solidly stuck in that late 80s, super early 90s kind of metal mindset. While the production has definitely improved over the years, and the guys have tried some interesting tricks here and there, at the end of the day, Queensryche still sounds like something ripped out of 1991. They kinda have Zebrahead's problem in that they just don't sound like they've progressed very far from those days. The riffs, the solos, the drumming, the songwriting, it's all very Nirvana hasn't happened yet and it'll never happen. Never, ever, ever. Oh. I mean, if you wanted to, that's something you could definitely argue against the band here. Particularly on an album this late in their career, they just haven't done a lot of moving on. But even though they are kinda stuck in their ways a little bit, their sound isn't necessarily unpleasant or anything. It's certainly dated, but not in an uncharming way, and the guys can still definitely play well. Michael Wilton and Peter Lundgren have an excellent chemistry behind the guitars, and there's some pretty heavy throwdowns and interesting lead work strewn all across its running length. It's a well-executed album for sure, and I do think it achieves everything it sets out to be. If you're a Queensryche fan, yeah, this'll hit the spot for you. Better than whatever Jeff Tate is cooking up, for sure. But speaking as a very casual listener to this band, while I did enjoy this, I can't see myself coming back to it very often. At this stage in their career, Queensryche have already pretty much proven themselves, and they've had some extremely rocky times in their last 5 to 10 years. So hey, the fact that they're still out there doing a good job and keeping their audience happy, that's always good to see, and I have a ton of respect for that. So you know what? Cheers. The verdict gets 3.5 1990s out of 5. Okay, now here's a band I've heard buzz around for the last 5 solid years or so, though not necessarily because they're hot shit. The Raven Age are a band that's been around for a hot minute or so now, but if you've heard of them, there's a fair chance it might possibly be because of one of those clickbaity as fuck articles on music websites that basically just jump to the straight, most easy talking point this band happens to have. Hey, did you know Steve Harris's kid is in this band? Steve Harris, you know? Steve Harris from Iron Man, he had a kid, and he's in a band. Steve Harris's kid is in a band. Oh my god. Hashtag mind-blowing. Hashtag click and share.
Click through our listicles are dead.
I could give 2 flying shits who squirted out these particular band members. All I care about is whether or not they can make good music. Just because you were squirted out of a famous person doesn't mean you inherit any other talent. Robin Thicke springs immediately to mind, but hey, who gives a shit about any of that if the music is good, right? So, is it? Yes. Yes, actually, yes it is. Dare I say it, I think we might have another potential album for the 2019 list on our hands here, like, ooh, damn. If we're gonna continue with the tired celebrity kids analogy, thank God this act appears to be more in the vein of Jacob Dylan than, say, Brooke Hogan. Oh, God. Fuck that whole family. But no, Raven Age absolutely killed it here on Conspiracy. This is a melodic metalcore act, very much in the vein of Killswitch Engage or Shadows Fall. It's very aggressive and punishing, but also exquisitely vivid with loads of melodic flourishes and very ear-catching guitar harmonization. And given how much of a sucker I am for melodic metal, I mean, yeah, you guys know this is right up my alley. Yeah, this is my shit. Vocalist Matt James is exceptionally talented, a true metal singer with an emphasis on singing. He doesn't get particularly growly, believe it or not. In fact, I'm not sure there's a single scream or shout on this record. It's pretty much just straight clean singing. A teensy bit off protocol for a metalcore record, but you know what? He's so talented and flexible and wicked charismatic on this record, you barely even notice or care. The passion he puts in his delivery really shows through, and he just bellows those lines with a kind of gusto that sells you from minute 1. Excellent drum work from Jay Patel, and a nice full presence from bassist Matt Cox round out the rhythm section very efficiently. A good rhythm section is the foundation of any good metal band, and these guys lay a solid, firm groundwork for the rest of the band to groove off of. And when it comes to that particular groove, man, I gotta give it up to Tony Maw and George, yeah, my dad is that Steve Harris. The guitar work is absolutely excellent here. Like I mentioned, it's very groove-based with that kill switch kind of vein, but they add their own special kind of opulent extravagance to it. You can tell that Georgie Boy has had at least a smidgen of influence from his dad here. But then again, who the hell hasn't? I mean, there's a touch of classical sounding riff work and a sort of bombastic nature to the composition that brings an extra oomph to the music and gives it its own sense of identity. I could see a band like Arch Enemy or All That Remains, when they didn't suck, writing a song like Fleur de Lis or Betrayal of the Mind, but I don't think even they would have the ability to pull them off this well. And that's not to mention the sense of scale and narrative in their tunes as well. By the end of this record, stuff like The Face That Launched 1,000 Ships, Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, and especially the glorious closer Grave of the Fireflies, man, they get borderline like operatic? This is a band that is clearly shooting for the stars in their composition, and I'd say, yeah, they hit the mark. I mean, I hate to admit this, but my initial expectations for this record were kinda low. Hell, like a lot of people, I heard about these guys through the Iron Maiden connection and unfairly wrote them off for it. Oh, daddy's got money. Yeah, Willow Smith. I'm sure you rock super hard. But I can honestly say that even if that connection weren't a factor here in this band, based on the raw music on display, yeah, these guys kick ass super freaking hard. Ignore the clickbaity bullshit and pick up this album because it rules. Conspiracy gets 4.5 cunt Hogans out of 5. Hey, a Viking metal album that isn't from Amon Amarth? I'm down. Let me get my helmet. So Tyr, yeah, they're an interesting case. The Viking metal tag fits these guys like a glove. They technically count as Faroese folk metal, being one of the very few acts to come from the Faroe Islands, a tiny little archipelago slapped right between Norway and Iceland. So, if you want to split hairs about it, there you go. But guys, come on, look at the name, look at that discography. Fuck, look at them. They are one dragon-bowed ship away from being actual Vikings. So yeah, I don't feel bad about calling it Viking metal, because this is about as Viking metal as it gets. And truth be told, the music on display, yeah, it's a damn good showing for the old Scourge of the Saxons. Man, some of the solo work on here is absolutely finger-melting. Harry Johansson and Attila, no, not that one, no, thankfully not that one, Voros, are absolutely murdering their guitars on this record. If Guitar Hero were still a thing, songs like All Heroes Fall and Downhill Drunk would be those super duper crazy hard songs that'd unlock after you'd beaten the story mode. The kind of stuff the game gives you like 5 or 6 warnings before attempting because they're so blister-rupturingly difficult that you could end up slicing off your own digits so hard they fly into your TV screens like Wiimotes. Yeah, that's the kind of level of shred we're dealing with here, and major props to them, because, wow, the level of playing proficiency here is god tier. So much so, I wouldn't doubt it if Bragi himself had an actual production credit on this album. Tyr are a band that have technically been at it since the late 90s, and man, you can tell they've picked up a lot over all that time. Exquisite musicianship on display here. And it has all those things you'd ask for from an album in its particular genre. Loud, bombastic melodies, a ferocious and battle-ready lyrical style that's intense and gripping and ripped straight out of Odin's beard. Though in addition to all that, I do like how these guys can get just a little bit on the cheeky side with their music too. They don't appear to take themselves too seriously, like some other bands in this genre can. Did I mention there's a song on this album called Downhill Drunk? Well, yeah, and it's one of the best ones on the album, and it's not about being a warrior or bathing in the blood of my enemies or slaughtering people by the thousands because I was born to kill. No, it's a song about getting drunk and rolling down a hill. No shit. I wish more songs were about getting drunk and rolling down a hill. If that last Little Dicky song had been about him getting drunk and rolling down a hill, people would have been kinder to it. They're a band that can be all brutal and sword wavy, while still walking that fine line into goofiness without becoming a parody of themselves. And that in and of itself is extremely respectable. Honestly, I don't have a lot of complaints about this record. It's super good stuff. Though it is super good stuff that's kind of only gonna appeal to a certain niche, though. I mean, Viking metal. It's just not gonna be everyone's cup of tea at the best of times. So if you're not the Skyrim type, this could be a big turnoff for you. And there is one complaint that I do need to file, even though I hate to, because, well, it's so on brand for me. But this album, well, it's an hour and 9 minutes. Yeesh. As much as I did enjoy this album, it is just way too fucking long. I know I make that complaint a lot on this show, but people, there is such thing as too much of a good thing. I absolutely love feta cheese, for example, but if you shoved an entire brick into my mouth, I wouldn't be thankful for the experience. This album is like my favorite kind of pizza being delivered to my door, except the pizza is the size of a goddamn monster truck tire. It's good, but when I try to take the whole thing on at once, I get a little uneasy of the experience. For those of you that are into this, won't mind it necessarily, though yeah, this isn't a record for absolutely everyone. But hey, if you've gotten all your mileage out of that last Amon Amarth and need something else to curb your Nordic hunger pangs, well, have a slice. Hell gets 4 drunks rolling downhill out of 5. Venom Prison. How can I describe this band? Okay, you guys know cattle decapitation? Okay, amp up their intensity by like 20 and then swap them out for a female singer and songwriter. That's basically what you've got here. Grindcore of the grindiest kind with a sledgehammer strong emphasis on lyrics against the patriarchy, capitalist greed, and rape culture. I think this album was what Al Jorgensen wanted Americant to be, but he clearly didn't have the talent to pull it off. This band, they are intense. I mean, they're grindcore though, and that's a genre that's built off of being intense and blood-curdling and as shocking and disgusting as possible. But man, people, even for grindcore, I'd say this band is pretty damn vicious. I mean, the cover of their first album is a painting of a dude getting his dick severed off and force-fed to him. This band is not even slightly fucking around. From note 1 of Matrophagy, I'm probably mispronouncing that, you can tell these guys are here to fuck shit up and they do not even mildly let up. Larissa Stupor has a very thick and raspy scream. She is 100% going for the throat on this album, and her delivery is absolutely decapitating. Ben Thomas and Ash Gray throw down a lot of good crunch and grind on the guitars, but there's also a decent sense of hookiness and groove thrown in there as well, with some excellent lead stings and melodies strewn in at just the right moments. They do an excellent job of keeping things just melodic enough to keep your ear attached, but never too much to distract from the sheer brutality of the onslaught. And I gotta give special props to drummer Joe Bills as well. The drumming in grindcore is always one of the most difficult aspects to pull off, because, I mean, but his drum work is very fill-heavy and his blast beats are always on point and precise. His excellent work helps make this album feel so brutal. And make no mistake, this album is brutal with a capital. Even with its lyrical themes, it's insanely brutal, if not depressingly topical as well. It's not often I pick up a grindcore album and go, wow, this kinda speaks to me. Should I be worried? Usually in the genre, not always, but more often than not, I'd say, it's just about the brutality. There isn't really a message to meat hook sodomy. It's just a nice, disgusting, disturbing little title to throw on a song that also probably wouldn't be out of place in your average Mortal Kombat game. With these guys though, there is, if not a message, at least a talking point behind a lot of the lyrics they use. Uterine Industrialization is a furious song about the removal of the autonomy of women from their bodies and the placing of them into societal roles that, as George Carlin once so eloquently put it,
they believe a woman's primary role is to function as a broodmare for the state.
A topic that, hey look, is very pertinent in the news right now. Implementing the Metaphysics of Morals is a song about rapists being allowed to be set free due to a justice system that shames and devalues the accounts of the victims in favor of perpetuating a system that protects the wealthy and the privileged. Again, crazy relatable right now. fuck, maybe this album works so well because the actual world is something ripped out of a grindcore record. Fuck. And Self-Inflicted Violence is a song that, well, it's especially brutal if you've ever gone through issues with self-harm. I totally have, and yeah, that's brutal, but not in a way I was expecting. Shit. Make no mistake, this album goes hard. It goes heavy, and it's absolutely relentless and remorseless. In all the best possible ways, mind. I do really enjoy this record. This is the kind of grindcore album that reminds me why I still like the genre. It's a lean, mean 41 minutes. It gets in, breaks all the furniture, and gets out, and doesn't give two shits about your stupid, shitty opinions about it otherwise. I'm down with this. I gotta admit, I'm super down with this. And if you're into grindcore, yeah, this album is a must-get. Hell, maybe even give it a chance if you're not. Again, grindcore is a very niche kind of genre. It's totally not for everybody, but this stuff is really good, and it shouldn't be ignored. Give it an honest go. We live in brutal times, so this might just be the brutal thing to help you get through it all, man. Just, whew. Samsara gets 4.5 tasty hot dogs out of 5.
Super special thanks to Kyler Aram, Mo Madison, and Brandon Burnford.